Thanks, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you. Okay. So I'm here to talk about the way we talk to our doctors and the way our doctors talk to us. So this is an aphorism that's very well known. The secret of the care of the patient lies in caring for the patient. I went online this morning because I was curious, and I got 17 million hits for this aphorism. Almost every hospital in the country has a phrase like this that involves the word care and the word caring. So Francis Peabody was a physician in Boston, and he made this statement in September of 1925 to the graduating class of Harvard Medical School. What's not so well known is that Dr. Peabody also had an advanced case of cancer, and he was dying. And so in addition to being a wonderful aphorism, I think it spoke to his need to be cared for as well as caring. This is a photograph that was taken a couple of months ago in a hospital. What's wrong with this photograph? This is the audience participation.
It's not excellent.
It's not excellent care, it's very good care. And do we think that very good care is good enough? Would you want very good care for yourself or your loved ones? Probably not. So here's an illustration of very good care. You may remember at the beginning of the 2012 NFL season, the referees went out on strike. And the NFL, in its wisdom, hired some very good referees, substitutes. And here's what happened. Something that had never happened in NFL history, a touchception. One of the referees is indicating a touchdown. The other is indicating an interception. So this is what you get when you get very good referees. We also know from studies that have been done by the Institute for Medicine that somewhere between 44,000 and 98,000 lives are lost every year because there are breakdowns in communication. Because the communication is very good and not excellent. So as Aristotle has said, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, but a habit. And we've heard at least two of the talks that I was here for talking about developing habits of practice, practicing over and over again until you reach a level of high confidence. So we're talking about habits. In your lifetime, you're likely to brush your teeth 100,000 times. Comes out to 37.5 days that you spend brushing your teeth. A doctor is likely to see between 140,000 and 160,000 patients in a practice lifetime. Think about that. Think about how many times you would be sitting as a doctor in front of a patient asking them questions. Those are habits. They're habits of practice. And if we could change the efficiency and the compassion of those visits by 10 or 15%, we actually would have changed the face of American medicine. So here are 4 habits of highly effective doctors. And this comes from work that we've done over the past 35 years. And I've had the opportunity to work with and teach about 50,000 doctors during my lifetime so far. I hope to get to the next 50,000 in the next couple of years. So one habit is opening the visit. How do we open visits with patients? And how do patients respond in the opening of the visit? Do we listen to the perspective of the patient? Do we find out why they're sitting in front of us and what their beliefs are? Are we empathic? Are we compassionate? And finally, how do we share information with patients? So I believe that in 2014, every single person, irrespective of whether they can afford medical care or whether they come from a wealthy background or a poor background, deserves excellent care and excellent communication. What happens when either that care or that compassion are missing? So I'm going to go through 4 facts and then talk about what we as patients can do when technical care or compassion are missing. So the first fact is that at the beginning of a visit, patients have on average 18 seconds to tell their physician what's wrong with them before they're interrupted. 18 seconds. And once they're interrupted, patients almost never raise additional concerns at the beginning of the visit. If they have a concern and they're so motivated, they'll raise it at the very end of the visit in an, oh, by the way, at minute 14 and a half of a 15-minute visit, oh, by the way, doctor, I've been feeling sad and blue and like life isn't worth living. That's a really bad place to get that concern being raised. If you're going to be responsible, you will take another 10 minutes with that patient, which is going to put you behind in your schedule by 9 minutes and 30 seconds. If you're not going to be responsible, you're going to send the patient on their way, but somewhere in the back of your mind, you know that this is a person who may be at risk of harming themselves. So it's a difficult trade-off. What can you do? So if you're being interrupted after 18 seconds, which is about as much time as it takes to raise a single concern, but let's say you have 3 concerns. Let's say you've had shoulder pain, you've had knee pain, and your son or daughter is going to marry a 4-foot gnome. We see that here in Indiana. Well, we know from research that the likelihood is that you're going to be interrupted after 18 seconds, your first stated concern. Do patients always present their most important concern first? Actually, no. The greater likelihood is that that third concern, which is more of a social concern, that your son or daughter is going to marry a 4-foot gnome, is likely to come last. Well, if your most important concern is actually last and you're interrupted after the first concern, you've got a problem. Because you're not actually speaking to the heart of what concerns you. And you may not get that opportunity. So writing down your concerns and prioritizing them is something you can do. If after 18 seconds you say, I've got shoulder pain, and the physician says, when did it begin? Which we count as an interruption. You can say, I'll get to that, but you know what, doctor? I have 2 other concerns that I want to discuss with you. And the most important of those is my son-in-law. So you can take control of the medical visit by speaking up. And you can take control early by writing down and prioritizing your concerns. Fact number 2, talking about listening to the patient's perspective. Doctors don't often listen to their patient's perspective. In one of a number of studies that have been done, perspective is taken into account about 1 every 5 times. So you have a 20% likelihood of telling the doctor that your headaches, your terrible headaches, are coming from the fact that you believe that God is punishing you for being a sinner. Is that important in developing a treatment plan with the patient? You bet. But you might not get to say that because only 1 out of 5 times will your doctor inquire. What can you do? Ask questions. There's a famous set of studies which involved a coach training patients to ask more questions during the visit to establish their perspective. Hypertension, diabetes, ulcer disease. 20 minutes of coaching and more questions being asked led to better biomedical outcomes, better blood pressure, better sugar control, and a faster return to work from people with ulcer disease. So asking questions is key to improving the visit. Doctors often miss the opportunity for showing empathy. We actually did a study that was published in JAMA where we showed that out of 100 visits, the doctor displayed empathy once. And we might conclude from that that doctors are really bad people who don't listen well and aren't empathic. But we'd have to back up and ask, well, what training does a doctor get in how to be empathic? Very, very, very little. When we teach death, dying, and palliative care, the total curriculum for a medical student is 1 hour. Imagine being, you guys are 15, 16, imagine being 5 years or 6 years older and not having any help in how to deal with people who are dying or deal with family members of patients who have. So I think it's important to ask, if you're not getting empathy, if you're not seeing it, to look for alternative explanations. Maybe this is somebody who never was taught how to use the skill of empathy, and then they weren't helped in their medical education to learn this. Look for alternative explanations. Finally, we talk about sharing information. Patients have about 50% chance of remembering what was told to them during a visit. And doctors almost never check for patient comprehension. They never ask the patient to repeat back what they just heard. Though in other fields like aviation, that is a habit of practice. You can't just change course in an airplane without saying to air traffic control that you are going to be changing course and then getting a confirmation from air traffic control. So you can take the floor and you can repeat back what you just heard, which creates the opportunity for the physician or for you to clarify what's been said. So I would say in 2015 or 2014 that the secret of the care of the patient is not just in caring for the patient. It's in partnerships at both ends of the stethoscope. And I would also encourage you to think about Gandhi's aphorism. Be the change you most want to see in the world. Don't complain about it. Be that change. Be active in your conversations with your doctors. And you will find that your healthcare outcomes, your satisfaction, and actually the doctor's satisfaction will improve. Thank you very much.